Hello and welcome to the 15th episode of Tailoring in Conversation. In this series, I'll be talking to tailors from all around the globe to gain a better insight into their worlds. My guest for today is Nathan Hellard. Nathan is not a tailor, but he's the founder of Maison Hellard, which is a family merchant specialized in French linen. We're going to talk about his journey in setting up the company and everything he's experiencing so far. So without further ado, let's get to it. Nathan, thank you so much for being here today. I've been looking forward to this because I usually talk to tailors, but I get to see another side of our industry, which is someone from a mill and a company, a family business. So thank you for being here.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much.
First question I have, Nathan, is just to get a sense of your background. When did this all start? I assume that you guys have planned this and you're kind of like trying to make the best out of it. And it seems like you guys are a new company, but I do get the feeling that you've been around since the 1700s. I don't know. Maybe it's because of the professional attitude, but I'll let you do the story.
I think the first thing is I'm not from the textile industry at first, because I was in the French army before. So it's not the same background, let's say. Not the best school to work in the luxury industry, neither. So, but I wanted to do that, and I think working for a very, very different industry, my chance was to to meet all the people and to meet a lot of people, fascinating people, and people were passionate about their trade. So at first it was working in the luxury industry, and then I've been a bit more precise, and I've met people on Tailoring, I've met people in Paris, tailors, and so I've understood they wanted to work in this industry. Now, you know, it's when you don't have the technical skills, as you said. I've seen your past interviews with tailor from this gentleman from Beach and Skinner and so on, and they knew they had talent they could use. But I've never been such a manual person, so it wasn't that easy for me. So I've wanted to work in this industry, and then I worked for Xenia, M&G, Xenia, always a pain to pronounce, and Scabal, and then I've understood that I wanted to work with fabrics because it's a way to work with tailors, with the tailoring industry, without the how to say the need and the requirements for the actual cutting talent and so on, because I don't have these specific skills. So yes, it's a very new company because I've worked on the company for a year and a half now. I think the pandemic and all the things we had in Paris helped, paradoxically. You know, the protests and the riots, and it was a busy year, 2019 and then 2020. So at some point I said, well, we have a beautiful fabric that comes from France, which is linen, which grows in Normandy, and it's a fabric and an industry that is dying in France, but it's something I would like to be part of. And I was lucky to meet some other people along the way from my time in the army. So they helped me, and I was lucky to meet some very nice person from England, working from a very reputable mill in Huddersfield, and then they helped me. We made the collection, and then yes, I think it's a new company, but it's a family one, and it's a company that I want to on the long term. You know, so this is why perhaps you have this sense of something that has existed for a long time, because it's not. I didn't want to make something modern. From the collection to everything, I wanted to have something that is, you know, here to last, so to speak. So this is why, yeah. But it's new because we've launched everything. We've started selling fabrics in August, so you know it's not so since August 2021. So it doesn't. Yeah. It's quite new, but it's a very nice thing. We have beautiful and formidable feedback, so it's very encouraging.
How do you make the transition from the military into fabric, but then also understanding the industry that, I mean, you're obviously you spent part of your life in the military, but then making that switch. How do your skills that you have developed during the military help you in creating a company, a mill, and running it basically?
Well, I don't think it's much about the army, because in the army perhaps it's the basic notions of management and so on, but it's not what is useful here. I think when I was working in the military, it wasn't something. My family comes from a military background as well, so I think it pushed me to go and meet people that I thought I had more connections and walks and an industry where I found something that I would like to do in the future. So I think the military helped me to define the frame of what I wanted to do, but it's not about skills. It was about having the chance to meet people, and I think the tailoring industry specifically, it's a very, very small world. And it's if you take the time to meet the people, if you take the time to know them, but really not just for a job or by pushing because you want to sell products and so on, but genuinely, then it's easy to build connections. And it's what we are trying to do now. It's not about changing and everything and inventing new things. It's just about developing this kind of relationship and not disappointing people. So I think the army was, for me, not about skills really, because, well, you can learn management or training everywhere else, but it was just about pushing myself to really do what I wanted to do. And this is that it was the most important, because it takes some courage, I think, to when you're not from this industry, because a lot of tailors, they say, well, my family, my grandfather was tailor. I was in Florence and Naples yesterday and the day before, and I've met tailors there. And they basically say, I've been working in the workshop since I was 6 years old. And, well, it's not my case. I mean, it's not my case, but again, for me, it was much more about, having the courage to go and meet those people, to enter those workshops without having a clue about what they were doing at first. So, this is what the military helped me to achieve, I think.
How many members do you have within the company?
Now it's my parents, basically. I think my nephew may join, but to keep it short, I wanted to launch the company in Normandy. My family is from southwest France, near to Pays Basque, and I remember I've traveled during COVID and the lockdown to Normandy with my father, who wanted to see Normandy, basically, and I'm very sorry to say, but we hated the landscapes, we hated the weather and so on. So going there, we just thought it's not possible. We cannot just set up anything here. I will be miserable if I stay here. And on our way back, my father said, well, I would really love to walk with you. And it's something that really speaks to me. And my mother said the very same. So at first, I was just thinking, well, it's not possible. I'm 31 years old. I'm launching a company. I don't want to launch something with my parents. It's a bit. I don't know. But then it's such joyful experience. We've made everything here, from the table where we cut the product to the racks to the office, and it's such a pleasure to work with them. So I've always been very far from my family home, because I've left for the army when I was 18 years old. Then I worked in Southeast Asia, but coming back for this specific thing, it's a beautiful, it's really nice, and we have a lot of fun, I think. So it's
Do your parents have a background in textiles?
Oh, not at all. My father was an artisan himself, but not in the textile industry. So no. But it's I think textile it's an easy passion to share. Because, when you make, we have an artistic director and a textile engineer in the UK, and this is the technical part. But moving from when I first worked on the collection, because we have only one collection for now, that this one, At first, I was expecting, yeah, all right. I was expecting to receive, when my colleague Martin sent me the documents, I was expecting to receive designs, colors, and so on. But I've received basically a table with 1 and 0, and I was so disappointed. I was expecting the collection for 2 months already, and I received that. It was so disappointing. But then you work on the software, and my parents helped quite a bit. I mean, of course, I've made the work with my colleague Martin, but they were commenting on the colors, on the designs, and moving from a table basically to a digital projection, to what we have behind, rolls and the texture, the hands. It's something you can easily share. So it's not such a technical job for now that my parents need. They are here to help, basically. But yeah, they are more here on a... I mean, we were traveling to Naples and Florence, but not with them, for instance. They are just here to help for the beginning. But it's very nice.
I find it funny. So it seems as if you didn't have to persuade your parents at all, and they kind of they volunteered to help you and join the journey with you.
Oh yes. Again, I was away for a long time, and I mean it's just nice. With this job, we have the occasion to work with fascinating people. We sent a couple of packages to Tokyo just an hour before. And to be honest, I've never traveled so far. So it's kind of magic, because you just travel. I mean, DHL travels for us for now, and they're very happy to do so. But it's such a pleasure, cutting the clothes, and we're trying to please those customers with such a different culture and so on. So I mean, they are very enthusiastic, and they say us now. When we talk about the company, they say us. We need to do that. So sometimes I'm just back just a second, because it's us, right? So, yeah, but it's a real pleasure, because it's quite difficult. It was quite difficult to launch something during COVID and everything. So I think the biggest point was not to be alone, because it's quite a big investment. We have stock, we have a warehouse, and so on. And doing this alone, I think it takes a lot of courage. And working with them, I think for me it was the best solution I could hope for.
I can imagine. So you guys started selling in August, you said, and that's where the bunch came out. How long did it take for you guys to get to the stage of being able to send bunches out and actually be in business officially? Because I imagine you've been doing a lot of work prior to that, and so setting everything up. And so tell us a little bit about that. And also, how does one set up a mill? Because most mills that we tend to work with, they've been there since like 1800, 1900, 1700, whatever. So I think it's going to be very interesting for the viewers of, there's this young guy, in his 30s, and he's setting up a mill. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, and just to be precise, we work with mill in Italy. Mm-hmm. So it's not our machine. What we've done so far is to develop an exclusive collection, and then to develop a specific hand as well. And it's something you're totally right. If you want to set up a mill, it was our objective at first, but it's even if you have the how to say the volunteer the will to do that, it would take a decade, I think, to be really efficient, because machines are very expensive. You need to find the real people. I mean the proper people to operate the machines. And when I've started it was a year ago. I've approached all the mills in France, because it was much more a partnership. Because the point was to approach a mill and say, well, you make a beautiful product, but we want something else. And our work with Martin, the artistic director, and Richard, our textile engineer, was we want this number of picks, so the number of yarn per centimeters. We want this weight, we want this hand, we want this. And the point was to develop something from scratch. And it took a year, because we basically have 5 mills in France, but none of them wanted to do so. None of them wanted to basically use their machines for small production, to take this time to develop a new collection, to develop an exclusive hand with specific finishings and so on. So we got to a point, I think it was end of 2021, when we thought, well, it's quite obvious now that we won't be able to produce in France. We have the linen that comes from Normandy, no problem, but we no longer have this kind of skill set. So hopefully Martin knew a very traditional mill in Italy, but they've been here for almost 100 years. I mean, setting a mill from scratch is very difficult. I don't know if you know Mrs. Campbell. She's made a beautiful mill. They make only tartans. It's a prickly sisal. Sorry for my English. And you have to start with a few looms, and it's honestly it's not the machines that are complicated to find. It's really the workforce, the skills. Because in our industry, and now we work only with bespoke tailors, a few tailoring brands, but bespoke tailors, you need to have the very best standard. And this takes, I think, honestly, a decade, at least a decade. So we very shortly abandoned this idea to set up a mill, to later find a mill that we could collaborate with. And for instance, with this mill in Italy, we are working on new blends now. They've been making only linen for 100 years, but because of this collaboration, I've basically said, well, can we do something else together? And we are thinking about new blends, even aside the traditional linen, silk, and wool, something new. It's linen and cashmere, for instance, one of them. And they agreed to work on that because it's much more than just a supplier and buyer relationship. But now setting up a mill it's something else entirely, because it's an investment it doesn't surprise me that in France the mills are a bit behind, because it's you need to have the very best product, you need to have the very best people, and these kind of work are not very attractive, I think, to most of it's very noisy. You have a lot of dust. It's long hours, especially during rush time. So we are very happy to do what we do, which is a bit less than weaving from scratch.
So you're not. I mean, at the moment you only have linen, but you're not planning to be exclusively linen forever. Is that correct?
Yes, but linen will be our basis. French linen specifically. We worked on traceability, so it's important for us to use this material. But you can do pretty much everything with linen. As I mentioned, linen cashmere, but linen silk, which is very well known. I think just like a very famous mill, Fox, with flannel, you can really do plenty of things with linen. And there are already a lot of companies selling wool. There are already a lot of companies working with, mohair, alpaca, or all those kind of fabrics. So for us, linen is our pillar, and then we can develop things around it.
What would you say is particular about French linen compared to all the other linens that are available in the industry?
I don't know about French linen in general. I just know that the people we work with in Normandy, they make a very qualitative linen. It's just like wool in Australia or New Zealand. The quality of the fiber. You have linen growing in Normandy, in north of France also. You have linen growing in Belgium, in Netherlands, and Normandy, it was part of the reason why I didn't want to set the company there. Has a very specific climate, so it's either rainy or cold, or a bit of sunshine and then rainy. So the point is, you need to have this very specific weather, so to speak, to have very qualitative linen. And it's also the reason why it's very difficult to grow somewhere else. Just like wine, it's not just about growing a plant. It's also having the proper soil, having the proper weather. So it's just like Bordeaux, which is very close to here. Basically, it's you can have this kind of cepage everywhere in the world, but it will not be the same wine. So it's the same with linen. And when we launched everything, I wanted to work with this kind of linen, and the mill said, "Well, of course it's the best one." And then there were no discussion possible for me. It was what I wanted to do. So, but it's about craftsmanship. It's about the fiber itself, the weather. And as I said, it's just like wool from Australia or New Zealand. It's a quality thing. So, yeah.
How would you say? I mean, I can imagine that the biggest challenges are yet ahead. But what would you say are the biggest challenges that you're kind of like anticipating throughout this journey? Because I mean, obviously, you've taken a big risk. You have to manage many things at the same time, and obviously you have your ideas that you want to implement, but there are also restrictions, when working with international mills and all of that. But what would you personally say are some of the big challenges for someone in your position?
I think in this industry, it's very difficult to build trust, but it's very quick to lose it. And we know that the product is fine because before making the collection, I've approached tailors a bit everywhere. I didn't have the chance to. I didn't know you at this time, otherwise I would have asked also. But we asked about the weight, the designs, the type of hand, and then we made our collection, obviously. But the fact is, the product, I think it's fine. Then we can find new blends, new designs. But I think when you have this kind of business, you have two parts. You have the textile part, which is basically developing a collection, making a nice product, and then you have the logistical part. And for me, the biggest challenge is not to disappoint. Working for Scabal before, there was nothing worse than selling a suit to a customer and then having to call him again and say, "Well, I'm sorry, but for your wedding in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the clothes is actually not available, but we have nice blue if you want to come back." And then, it's a bit complicated, right? So our point is we have a stock here for all the references. Now, we've launched everything in autumn, basically. So we didn't know a peak season so far. And it takes time to reorder. It takes time so basically, we need to be ready in terms of logistics. We need to forecast everything, so not to be out of stock, so to have a consistent quality. And this is the biggest challenge because, again, working with bespoke tailors, it's really fascinating because you build a relationship with people who are basically the rock stars of this industry, and I know that. I've met some of them. It's really my rock stars anyway. And it's fine until there is a problem with the clothes, and then it's something else entirely. So, and personally, I wouldn't dare disappointing them because it's something this kind of thing, it's for me, it's part of my personality as well. It's of course, disappointing these kind of people for me would be terrible. So I think it's the biggest part to be consistent in terms of quality, in terms of logistics, in terms of how you run the business, but on the less exciting way, so to speak, preparing everything and so on.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. It's, like you say, trust is one of the most difficult things to build. And the same goes in our field. When you're working with a client, sometimes from time to time, not everything goes as planned. Not everything is always on time. But the way you handle it kind of like allows them to at least think, okay, this is someone who I could trust, that when things don't go as perfect as expected, at least they know how to handle. So I'm fully in line there. Interesting, very interesting. Nathan, when you work within the luxury industry, let's say, and you try to kind of like improve the quality of the materials, improve the quality of the process, all the different procedures and all the different layers. One of the things you'll notice is that control of every single stage becomes important. And when you try to develop your vision in a way that it's 100% the way you want it to be or the way the company wants it to be, you can only do that if you have a certain command over all the different levels. What would you say for someone like you are the most important levels, perhaps of production or of design or whatever? What are the most important levels that you think that whatever happens, I cannot give these away to someone else to do? It has to be under our standards and under our, let's say, control.
Well, I think you cannot abandon anything. Making clothes, you have to. It's a package, really. It's not just about the design. It's also the hand of the fabric. It will be the provenance of the fiber. It will be how it is woven, with which machine. It will be how it is finished, and then, as I said, the logistics. So I've carefully abandoned some of the aspects of my job because I didn't have those competencies. When I mentioned my colleagues, the artistic director, the textile engineer, or the mill, the point was all the delay we had because we couldn't find any mill in France. We got to know each other with my colleagues first and then with the mill in Italy when we found it. And we built a trust. We built over all those months an understanding on what we wanted to achieve and where we wanted to go. And I think this time was a benediction, really, because I don't know if you've tried buying something online where you have to explain what you want, for instance, in terms of if you make your logo with a designer and so on, you absolutely know what you don't want, but you never know how to explain what you want. And those kind of people, they help frame a bit where you want to go. And the funny thing is, for designs, I knew that I love some brands. I've been very inspired with some brands which are for me brilliant, and I will not mention them, of course, but they are Anglo-Italian, Drake's, Fox, but I will not mention them, of course. But the point was we need to find our own identity, but we want something that will be classic with a twist. It's always, everyone say that, but in the end we have our own personality. And the fact is, Martin is British. He works for an old mill, so he has a very, very traditional vision. The mill in Italy, they are very Italian. So at first when they proposed some colors and so on, we said, right, it's nice, it's bold. So why not? But perhaps we should go this way, So you have to trust those people and trying to find. And perhaps what you said about the army before, I was working a bit with some special say forces and this kind of thing, and all the people are master in their trade. So the point is not to come in a room and say, well, let's go, so I want this and that, and you have 10 days to provide it. So no, you just have to say, all right, this is basically our vision, what do you think? And so you cannot abandon anything. And when you start saying, this is not what I need to do, the logistics, it's not my part, it's when you start having problems, when you start, you need to trust people, but you need to have a frame and a good understanding. But it's very, very complicated because making collection, it takes days and nights, and you basically don't sleep because, again, when you have a Prince of Wales, for instance, why this shade of grey and not something a bit darker? And then you start saying, well, if I need to redo everything because, my gosh, it's so complicated. And then they say, well, no, Nathan, it works perfectly well. So trust me. And then you say, all right, I can sleep now. So, it's not abandoning. It's about trusting people you work with, basically.
Mm-hmm. Well, you bring up a very fine line. I'd actually like to explore that a bit more. So from what I'm understanding, you say that sometimes and often if you have a good group of people around you, you have to let them do what they do best in order to get the best results. And sometimes it could be that what they do may be slightly different than what you have in mind, and you may be, a bit fussy and say like, hey, I don't know about this part or that part. And they're like, listen, this is the best, option that we have. How
Yes.
do you build that trust? How do you, because, I feel exactly what you said, but like, I have moments that even if I go to an expert and they give me an option, I'm like, sorry, we have to rethink this. And so I'd like to know from like, when do you let go? When do you actually say, do you know what? I'm not going to interfere. I trust you guys. What you give me, I know it's the best option for now. Let's move on.
I think the chance I had, for instance, the artistic director, I work with my colleague. We knew very quickly that we had basically the very same vision. I agree with you. The point is not to say you're an expert, so I leave it to you. No. With the mill, for instance, when we work on the handle, they said, well, it's the best thing we've ever done. So trust us. It's the best thing. You can trust them because this is very, very, very technical. But we built the relationship before.
When we've made the finishing trials in France, I remember, and the point is not to criticize or anything, but when we've done that, a mill in France basically just sent an A4 paper, A4 size, of linen, and the commercial just said, well, I've put the sample in my washing machine, so basically it will be like that. And when he said so, I was just, well, are you trying to say that you've put an A4 size linen piece in your washing machine, and I should say, well, all right, let's buy a full collection of that. It's perfect. And on the contrary, in Italy, they've woven 100 meters of clothes, and they've tried a lot of finishing. And at the end, we selected 10 meters that we really liked. And you can trust people when they make these kind of efforts, because you know that if after 2 months of investment, because we didn't pay anything, it was just the first, the trials and so on, and when they tell you, well, it's new for us, it's a new quality, it's a new finishing, so that we are very keen on developing it for you, then you can say, all right, I let it go. But you have to build this relationship. Otherwise, just, well, I cannot choose on an A4 size paper of linen, so it's a bit complicated for me. You may have a very nice washing machine, but it's a bit odd, So yeah, you have to build this trust first, but it's difficult, especially for designs, because for designs we worked very much hand in hand with the artistic director, and then the mill came in at the very end, saying, well, we are used to these kind of colors. This color will need to dye it, so it's a bit new, but yes. But this one, I think, given our experience, it will be too much, perhaps. We've understood where you are going. And basically, yes, it's that. You really have to I think time is of essence. You need to build this, and it takes a lot of time. So, yeah, and for us, it took a lot of time, yes. But yeah, basically. So, yeah.
And do you think it's also a part of your own personal discipline of being able to say, let's just think of the bigger picture, let's not create more problems than necessary?
Oh, no. My personality, on the contrary, is to, especially for this kind of thing, I mean, it's my passion, right? So you cannot just say, yes, I trust you, yes, I will see that in a few months. I cannot. I wanted to have all the designs. The software we use for designs, name is Penelope. And you basically have these 1 and 0 tables that are converted into very nice, actually, designs with the texture and so on. And I remember when the mill said, all right, I will send you the Penelope in an hour, I was just like a kid, refresh in my mailbox. So it's not about, honestly, it's not about, yeah. I mean, I'm not a good officer right now, because an officer should say, yeah, I trust you now. So no, I was just like a kid. And for me, it's when the truck came in to just deliver the clothes, I was 2 hours before and watching outside, waiting for a truck. So no, I cannot say I would love to say I'm very disciplined. I was just letting it go. It's perfect, but it would be lying, I think. So yeah.
Oh, I can completely imagine how that goes, man. I experience exactly the same things. And I guess that's the moment where you really know that you are so passionate about what you're doing that it could be dangerous, you know? Yeah, it could work against you, but we live and we learn, as they say. Um, how how would you describe the dynamics of a family business? Because they're your parents. They're not some people you've just hired based on a CV, or you've known them all your life. And but the interesting part is it's a family business, but it's not a family business that's been doing it for hundreds of years. So how does that work, basically?
We fight over the music every day. Every day someone has to choose the music or the radio station. So it's, but without joking, it's there is no problem. I think we have the very same. How to say? It's the southwest of France. So let's say people are a bit are very kind here. It's not Paris. Sorry if some Parisians are looking for that, very stressful and so on. In southwest of France, it's much more relaxed and but very perfectionist. I mean, my father was an artisan himself, and I didn't know that. But now that he's retired, a lot of people keep calling him from the whole region because he was quite talented at what he did, because he's a very easygoing person. But when it comes to making something right, well, he will not sleep if it's not done right. So, and I think it's we have the very same, how to say, vision. So it's it takes a lot of efforts at first, because of course you need to take the time to understand the trade, how to cut with the machine the clothes properly, how to spot defects, how to package things, because well, we tend to do. We've made the boxes made to measure. We have everything we've made it from scratch. So we need to have this kind of very consistent, how to say, service. And for me, it's paramount, because if someone sends me a message, I need to answer it very quickly. And it's just that we are here to facilitate the work of tailors. We are here to provide something that will be easy for them to sell to customers they will like working with. And this kind of things you don't see when you order something, it arrives the next day. So it's brilliant, it's convenient, right? But it takes a lot of efforts. Mm-hmm. And my parents know that, and they have the very same vision. They want to they've understood who we work with. They've never met a lot of tailors. I think we will go to Italy very soon with them. But they've understood the kind of people we work for or with, because my father was an artisan himself. So it's easy to understand. So there are no problems at all. On the very contrary, it's honestly it's a real pleasure. And again, we've made everything here. Perhaps I will show you a bit later. We put some music on. We have the sunlight of France. So it's not the UK. So we have sunlight sometimes. And it's just a pleasure to work here. So this is the kind of atmosphere we want to have. So it's not, it's perfectly fine.
What did your father do?
I was a tiler. So he was doing mosaics or this kind of. It's a very. I hated working with him when I was young, before my studies, but it's now that I understand how beautiful the things he was doing were. It's kind of it's really artistic, and it's the kind of work where I have the utmost respect for him, because it's the kind of work where you break your back basically to make something. It's not just like cutting clothes or this is easy as compared to what he was doing, but this degree of dedication I'm very, very respectful, and so this is why also I think we understand each other. He had a very nice career, let's say. He made beautiful things, and now it's much more relaxed. I mean, there is pressure, but I can take on the pressure, because if there is a problem, then it's because of me. But then it's I try to take the pressure. Sometimes I just divert it to them and yelling a bit. But it's I think we understand each other. It's the biggest point.
Does he feel that his skills from his previous career are now helping him with certain things that he's doing within the company?
No, I think when you've made your own career, so to speak, by trying not to disappoint people, by trying to make beautiful things, then it's something it's the kind of value you can bring to a company. And it's something that is not, something that is not really easy to achieve. It's not something that you learn. You have to meet the people and so on, and you have to have this kind of consistent approach. And this is really what he had. So this is mainly, there is no link between his past experience and now. But when you are an artisan or when you have this kind of job, you are your own employer, and you cannot disappoint because it's all about your name. So it's basically the same here. We have the company is basically our name. So it's we cannot disappoint because it will be personal at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's the story behind? I have a very beautiful bunch here. What's the story behind the logo?
Oh, it's the crest of our family. So we have arms and it's a crest. Yeah, it's basically that.
So this has been existing for a long time.
Oh, you mean the crest? Yes, I think it was 18th century. I think if I remember well. Sorry for that. But it's just I wanted to have something personal. It's for me. It's all about it's all about the family. It's making a business that will last, I hope, a long time. So it's really about having this kind of symbol that is very, very, very personal. So this is why I've used it. And again, it's even at the end of the bunch, you have the painting of the family. So it's it's an intimate relationship that we want to have with customers, showing that we are not a big company. I think we'll never be, and it's not my objective. But the point is, there are people behind these brands, and there are people behind the company, and there are people cutting the clothes, maintaining the service we want to. And if there is a problem, those same people you have here are actually the one responsible. So you can talk to them. It's not just, So it was important for me to have a human face because it's the only way I see business, actually.
I think that's one of the most beautiful things. And I remember when I received this bunch, it was your handwritten note along with it as well. And I think, like you say, that makes it human. And it's not just like some company out there in some corner sending people things. And that they are taking the responsibility. You can tell, you can feel in the communication as well.
Yes. Also it's a small company, so it would be very odd or pedantic just to say, yeah, you can talk to our receptionist. Or, we don't have a receptionist. We do everything ourselves. So no. The point, even when we go and meet the tailors. I mentioned Italy, but I've also had Digio with tailors in Australia, and some of them said, "So you are the agent for this brand, right?" Or saying, "No, actually no." And it's they were very pleased because they said, "Oh, it's the first time we are actually meeting people behind it." And for me, it would be a shame not to do so because, again, it's not just a business. Working with this kind of tailors, visiting the workshops and seeing the people cutting the clothes and so on, it's a pleasure. And seeing the clothes becoming something tangible, because for now it's only rolls so far. But I've seen the very first jacket. It was 2 weeks ago. It was from a gentleman in Singapore, and it's not about pride. It's about, again, when I mentioned the process early on, from the 1 and 0 to the Penelope and so on. Well, you also have someone somewhere wearing a jacket and being quite pleased doing so, and it's it's a very personal and very intimate industry. you make something that is you can touch, you can feel, and it's something that people will wear for comfort, for because they feel fine in it, they feel good looking in it. So it's it's very human business. And I couldn't just say, well, I will hire a commercial person to go and visit tailors because I want to do it. It will be jealousy at the end of the day, you know. So yeah, we've done it with my colleague in the UK because of the COVID. Obviously, I couldn't travel to London, and it was for me. It was I felt really disappointed about that because I knew some of those people for quite a long time. I've known Michael Hill since I was searching from Drake. Since I was searching a job in the industry, they were only at Clifford Street and Aberdeenshire Street, so it was perhaps 8 years ago. And we've kept contact from that point. But the one day I can go there, not to work for them, but to work with them, there are COVID and the quarantine and this kind of thing. So I was very disappointed, but hopefully I will come and see you too, very, very, very soon.
Sure, we'd love to. We'd love to have you here. Okay. One more question I have is how many? I mean, you're certainly the first person I know that is doing what he's doing. How many people from your age are doing what you're doing now in this way?
Well, it's a tough question. I think they've not been new companies. Again, I may be mistaken, but I don't think they've been any new company in this trade for 50 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but honestly, even one of the most Frenchest company, so to speak, which is Dormo, they have their headquarters, and I'm friend with Richard, who is their commercial director. So it's a company I love to. I was to work with them at some point. But they have their headquarters in France, but they've been there for a long time. Now they weave everything in England, obviously, and most of their clothes. But it's very, like all the mills, they've been here for very, very long time. And I don't know, perhaps you can find people selling clothes. You have a lot of new generation making, for instance, in France, working with linen, but it will be much more about making garments. Mm-hmm. And for instance, making T-shirts or with the very same color and so on, making a collection for bespoke and so on. It's such a niche, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So I think they've been any new, especially young people for quite a long time. So no, I cannot answer your question precisely because I have no idea actually.
Well, it's interesting because I do quite like this, and being in contact with a mill is always, there are like dozens of people working there, and so I mean usually they do have an agent, and most of the time it works well. But I've never seen let's say someone who has a bunch is like a small family company. That's fairly new. Okay. Let's do a speed round. I have a few words. Yeah, sorry.
I was just saying that this kind of what you said about talking to people in the mill, big mills and so on, it's very true, because one of the things we can offer right now is to weave to order from 50 meters. We can basically meet a brand or even tailors and say, well, if you have any designs, we can, of course, we will bring our frame, as I said, with the artist director, the textile engineer, then the mill. But I think I've seen Huntsman making their tweed contest, where customers basically draw tweeds and they can win the fabrics and have a jacket made with it. But I've been very surprised to see that we can, due to our connection, collaboration with the mill, we can do that with a very small batch, because 50 meters, basically, it's nothing. It's, I don't know, it's 20 jackets or something. So it's not much. And I think being very close to the mill and being a very small business, it's a new way of doing things that we are very proud of. Because again, it's all about building this relationship. and it will be complicated with a huge, let's say, I know Scabal had this kind of, it was possible to weave letters. I know the English coach, I don't know his name, sorry, I don't watch too much of football, but he had the jacket with carry it home, which they never done, obviously. But, they made it for him specifically. So, I mean, it's very, very specific, and they don't do it very often. But being able to do so, being a small business, it's something very proud of. And we are making it for a company, so it will be a first. But again, it's possible because we are small and we have this kind of relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's very good to know. Let's do a speed round, Nathan. I have a few words, and I'll say them, and then you tell me the first thing that comes up your mind. Okay. So let's start with an easy one. Tailoring.
I think it was my first visit to Henry Poole & Co. I've met Simon Cundy there, and he was very, very, very kind to let me visit the back of the workshop. And it was this kind of very London house with a small stairs and so on, people walking on tables and just teaching like that and looking at you. And it was this kind of experience, I think you never forget them. So it was, and we are very lucky to work with them now. So it's the kind of thing really that that when you see that and you love that you are in the right place. So you are home basically. So yeah, it was a big experience.
Okay. A second bunch.
Second bunch? For us, you mean? Yeah, sure. We are working on a very nice, two different qualities actually. It will be a transitional jacketing bunch, and we'll have linen and cashmere, but real linen and cashmere. So it will be 60-40%. So it's not 1% or something. So you can feel the cashmere. And linen and silk, 50-50%. And for us, it's a huge investment, but it's the kind of thing that hopefully, I mean, we are quite young, so it's a risk, but it will be a way to establish a bit the business as well, and it's something we want to propose to our customers, something a bit different. But because, just if I have a minute, when you make finishing for blends, you have two ways of doing so. You can either finish it with a woolen state of mind, or finish it with the linen state of mind for our linen cashmere, for instance. So working with a traditional mill that only made linen so far for almost 100 years, they have a very linen-oriented spirit. So when they finish it, I mean, perhaps people working in cashmere will say it's nonsense, it's blasphemy, whatever. But for us, it's a way also to proposing something a bit different with a different hand. And as I said, we need to bring something on the table. Even though the first bunch will be a permanent collection, there is no discussion about that. But we also need to have this kind of, not surprise, but to say, all right, they make beautiful things, a bit more elaborate than pure linen, perhaps. And for us, it's very important. And again, it will be quite an investment, but I hope it will be ready around March or April. Start showing samples and so on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's very good. Now, well, the next thing I wanted to ask is wool. How about wool? What are your thoughts on wool?
I mean, all my jackets, because I don't wear suits, I always wear separate jackets. And for me, wool has to be textured. I mean, my preferred bunch at Scabal was L'Or Lomond. It's wool and cashmere. It's one of the only bunch that is made in Scotland, country that I really love. And this kind of texture, this kind of, there is a 3D aspect that I love. But for me, wool has to be like that, like traditional, classic, not vintage. I don't like this word, but the old way of doing wool. For me, with wool, you can also have a modern approach that I don't really like, which is very flat. living in Paris for 4 years, the only people you will see wearing a suit will be people with a navy blue or black suit going to La Défense, which is basically the business area. And it will always be the same worsted wool, a bit flat and so on. But for me, it's a bit sad because there is no pleasure in that. It's I would say it's on purpose suit. And I think working with linen, you can really work with people and with end consumer who want something a bit different, more casual, because they really want this kind of debonair attitude, this kind of thing. So wool can be, for me, of course, it's perhaps the best fabric all year round, but it has to have some twist. Otherwise, it's a bit, how to say, a bit dull, perhaps,
yeah,
a bit flat.
Okay. The future of textiles.
I think it will be about small companies. When I've launched everything, I have friends at Dormeuil, of course at Scabal and Xenia as well, and they were all talking about how difficult it was, because when there are less tailors now, which is very, very sad, because again I was in Florence yesterday. I've met Mr. Liverano there. You know, these kind of people are true legends. But it's very sad to see that, I mean, you have basically Liverano, and then you have, I don't know, 500 meters Gucci or these kind of brands, which are beautiful brands. But it's basically, I mean, I'm exaggerating, of course, but it's roughly the same price, you know. But why not go bespoke? I mean, and I think for textile industry now, you have to understand that the tailoring business is what it is now. It's a bit more, in terms of size, a bit more modest than before. So you cannot afford to have huge collections. You cannot afford to change your bunches every 2 years, every 3 years, because what happens is, and I've seen that at tailors, you have entire walls of bunches, and it's a Pareto law. You know, you just pick 2 or 3 bunches, you walk all the time, but size,
100%.
So, yeah, because you are used to it, you know the people behind it, and you like walking the cloth. So it's a beautiful industry because it's all about making something new. It's making something that is tangible, respectful for the environment and so on, because it's small batches, it's not big production and so on. But at the end of the day, I think just like you produce only masterpieces. For us, it should be the same thing. Not doing new collection every time, and I prefer this kind of vision, keeping it small, but working with fascinating and talented people rather than having warehouses and warehouses of clothes.
Yeah, I guess that's a good benefit as well, because you logistically you have more room to maneuver, so you can be more creative and innovate a lot easier as well. Hopefully,
yeah, you can capsule collections. You can work small batches, and even for tailors, I think even for you, it must be much more thrilling to have a capsule collection that you know that we end. For instance, at Scabal, we had this collection, and it's made from paintings from Dali, and it was a success. I don't remember the name of the bunch. They've made fabrics based on 20 paintings, if I remember well, and it's fascinating because you know that it's a limited stock. You know that it's something very special. It's not overpriced, of course, because otherwise there is no point. But you can really go to your customer and say, well, this is something nice. You should have a look at that. Otherwise, just bunches and bunches everywhere. And so hopefully we can do these kind of things too. We'll see. Not with Dali, of course, but perhaps with someone else.
Well, I look forward to it. Well, the paintings you've got at the back of the bunch and on the website and on Instagram, they're quite nice, you know. It gives a very, the sense that I get is a very intimate, you know, kind family, you know, they're, you know, turning their passion into something that a tailor like me, you know, can create beautiful things with.
It's a very nice person. His name is Bertrand de Miolis. And we met thanks to a friend. He painted some paintings for Hermes before. So again, even if Hermes is a huge company, they still have this kind of family business, which is very odd because now it's, of course, it's a company we all know. But and it was nice working with him because he knew this kind of industry, and we needed to convey this kind of message that's, well, it's you're not just buying fabrics from us. It's something, well, we are working together now. Mm-hmm. And, well, if we work together, we will do everything possible to please you. And the design here, you want to change that, perhaps in 3 years we can talk about that. And it's difficult when you are a new company, because I think tailors are used to working with very big brands, and even the most famous tailors, when they talk to big mills, they can make some things to measure or weave to order, but it must be complicated. Well, here it's really, when we sell products to fabrics, cut lengths to tailors, I'll always ask, how was it? How did it behave on the cutting table? What do you think of the end product? And some of them do not answer, of course. It's a boring guy from southwest of France. But then I bring foie gras, and then they talk, I'm kidding, but I think it's this kind of collaboration with tailors. It's not separate industry, it's not silos. It's really how we work together, and it's very important to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Smart fabrics.
Smart fabrics? I don't know about that. We had one at Xenia. You could put the clothes and the jacket in a washing machine. I don't know. I tend to be a very traditional person. I think, linen, for instance, it's not smart. It's a plant that grows only with sun and rain. It doesn't take any chemicals. It is left to dry under the sunlight of Normandy, which is not so much, but it's still, you have a bit of sunshine sometimes. And it's not smart. They've been doing so the very same method for many years. And I tend to like that. I leave smart fabrics to other people. I prefer the artisan vision, people saying, I was at the mill 3 days ago, and the people working there, honestly, they are all 50 or 55 years old. They have apprentice, just like a tailor, actually. They have apprentice also, but it's you see that they've been doing that for 20 years. So if you bring on the table, yes, I want a cloth that will be washable, that will not shrink, and actually it's linen, but it's not linen, they will just say, ma caso, or I don't speak Italian, but they will just, not possible, and I don't want to play this with Italian, so I'm not full enough.
Okay, family business.
I think, as I said, at first I was a bit, how to put it nicely, I didn't want to build one before, because I wanted to be independent. I wanted to have the company. I wanted to be in a place I would choose, and so on. But at the end, it's you cannot be alone when you do that, because you need to share the good moments, and you need to share also the bad ones. Mm-hmm. And working with your family, well, we will hire very soon because we need help. But working with the family, you know the people for quite a long time. So you know what you can ask, what is a bit more difficult to ask. And again, it makes sense now. I couldn't envision it without it. Visiting the tailors in Italy, they are basically all family business. And I think it works because sometimes just you don't have to communicate. You just know that, all right, okay, we will do that. I trust you. And for me, trust, again, it's the best thing I could opt for. So, yeah, for me, it's vital now. And I don't see a company without this kind of spirit and experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Yeah, no, it's definitely the case. And, with family, it's the case that, not always in every business setting it works. But if it's something that, you share the same vision as you said you do, then it's, like you say, an opportunity to share the most beautiful moments and also the difficult times. And that's what you've already been doing throughout life. So why not, share it with the business as well?
and it's a chance as well. I mean, my nephew are interested in. Again, it's easy to share as a passion. It's when you touch the clothes and so on, even if they are quite young for now. But I do hope that someday it will be. I mean, I would be proud of that. I prefer to keep modest, but I would be proud to have one of my nephew just coming here and say, well, I would love to try and work with you. And of course, I will say you have to deserve it, but I would love to, because if you can share this kind of passion, then it's. Meeting those tailors with my friends, with my family, perhaps in the future with the younger generation, it would be quite something. It's obviously far too soon for now, but yes, it's. I don't see it without this kind of perspective now.
Mm-hmm.
Common family project.
Well, it surely is great to have you within the industry, and I look forward to make something with your fabrics, and I wish you all the best, Nathan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for making the time. It's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot, so hopefully we'll get to speak again.
With pleasure. And I hope to see you soon again. Well, as soon as I can travel to London. I think now they are opening the quarantine things, or depending on the political side of COVID, of course. But I need to London. I think I need to meet the people. I need to, and hopefully with the new quality as well. So that shows something new.
Yeah, will do. Thank you, Nathan. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Van. Have a good day.
And that was Nathan. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. If you'd like to see more from Nathan, you can follow the links to his Instagram and website in the description of this video. If you have any thoughts, questions, or anything else you'd like to add, please let us know, and we sure hope to see you again in the next episode. Until then, bye-bye.